Nathan Hale was invincible. At least, that's what the world believed. At just 32, he was the youngest CEO to ever appear on the cover of Forbes 3 years in a row. A prodigy of Wall Street. Otec visionary. The golden boy of the Hale family empire. But that night, none of it mattered. The rain poured down like judgment, the city drenched in a metallic sheen of headlights and sirens. Nathan sat stiffly in the back seat of a black Bentley Mulsanne, knuckles white as he clutched his phone, eyes darting between the screen and the blurry chaos outside. His wife, Isabel, was in labor. "I told you to take FDR, not the damn West Side," he snapped at his driver. "I'm doing my best, sir," the man said, voice tight with nerves. The GPS said. "Forget the GPS. Just get me to Mount Sinai before," his voice cracked. "Just go." The driver pressed harder on the gas. Inside the car, the air conditioning hummed softly, but Nathan was sweating. His custom-tailored suit clung to his back. He glanced at his Rolex again. Each second that ticked by sounded like a hammer striking his chest. He had promised Isabel he would be there. Hand in hand. Eyes on hers. Through every contraction, every breath, until their daughter came into the world. But fate had other plans. As they turned onto East 98th Street, everything happened in one blinding, breathless moment. A red pickup truck burst through a red light. Horns screamed. Tires screeched. The Bentley swerved hard, too hard. And then came the crash. Metal screamed against metal. Glass exploded. The world flipped sideways. A deafening silence followed, broken only by the hiss of the crumpled engine and the rain tapping against broken glass. Nathan's last conscious thought was her name. Isabel. He woke up to a world that didn't feel real. The ceiling above him was white. Too white. Bleached and sterile. Machines beeped around him in mechanical rhythms, cold and uncaring. His mouth was dry. His head pounded. Then he tried to move his legs. Nothing. Panic surged like fire through his spine. He looked down. His legs were still there. Wrapped in gauze. Still. Lifeless. He gripped the bed rails and tried again. Nothing. Not even a twitch. The door opened. A doctor walked in. Older. Stern. Too calm. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice soft but firm. "I'm Dr. Martinez. You've been in a medically induced coma for 4 days. We stabilized your condition, but I'm afraid there are complications." Nathan's throat tightened. "My wife," he whispered. "Isabel. She was giving birth." The doctor's eyes darkened. He paused. "I'm very sorry. Your wife didn't make it. There were internal injuries. We did everything we could." The room tilted. Nathan felt like he was falling, even though his body didn't move. "And the baby?" he asked, voice cracking. "Where is my daughter?" Another pause. That damn pause. "The infant was taken," the doctor said carefully. "Not by hospital staff. We're still investigating. Security footage is inconclusive. But we believe someone abducted the child." Nathan's scream echoed down the sterile hallways. He was a man who owned satellites, data centers, government contracts. A man whose name alone could move markets. But in that moment, he was powerless. He had lost his legs. His wife. His daughter. Everything he loved, gone in one brutal, senseless night. What followed were months of silent rage. Therapy sessions he never attended. Investigations that led nowhere. The Hale family, his father Thomas and mother Evelyn, told the press it was an unfortunate tragedy, and retreated into their Hampton estate, far away from questions and cameras. Behind closed doors, they told Nathan to move on. "It's for your own good," his mother whispered one night. "You're not well. Don't go chasing ghosts." But Nathan didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in betrayal. He shut down. Isolated himself in his penthouse suite above Central Park. Sold off side ventures. Doubled down on Hale Corp. Every meeting, every acquisition, every merger, he threw himself into work like it was war. People whispered behind his back. "He's gone cold." Like he died in that crash and came back a machine. They weren't wrong. Nathan Hale became a legend on Wall Street for his ruthlessness. He fired entire departments overnight, sued rivals into bankruptcy, turned quarterly reports into battlegrounds. But at night, when the city lights dimmed and the silence crept in, he would sit in his wheelchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows and stare out at the city that had stolen everything from him. He would whisper their names. Isabel. Baby girl. And he would wonder if somewhere, in some other version of life, he had held them both in his arms. Then he would shut his eyes and fall into the kind of sleep that feels like drowning. Until the day everything changed again. But not with a crash. With a whisper. And a little girl in a pink dress. The summer air in Brooklyn hung heavy with heat and exhaust fumes. Even in late afternoon, the streets buzzed with life. Children shouting from stoops, music spilling from open windows, and distant sirens blending into the pulse of the city. Nathan Hale didn't belong there. Not anymore. His matte black Mercedes Sprinter van idled at the curb. Inside, his driver and part-time bodyguard Marcus lowered the platform lift and carefully wheeled Nathan onto the uneven sidewalk. Nathan wore a charcoal gray suit and black sunglasses. Everything about him was sleek, sharp, untouchable, except the wheelchair that grounded him to reality. "We'll be 10 minutes, Nathan said, voice flat. Marcus nodded. "You sure you don't want me to go in with you?" "I'm not here for trouble. Just a meeting." That was a lie. There was no meeting. Nathan had spent the last few weeks following a name that had surfaced in a conversation overheard at a boardroom gala, someone who might know something about babies stolen from hospitals in the past decade. It was likely nothing. Another dead end. But even dead ends had to be chased. He rolled forward on his own, navigating the cracked pavement with practiced ease. Despite the designer suit and luxury chair, he drew curious stares from people passing by. Some recognized him. Others just sensed something off. That was when it happened. A sharp, stabbing sensation twisted in his chest. Nathan froze. His vision blurred. A sheen of sweat broke across his brow. His breath caught in his throat as the pain intensified, like a hand was reaching inside and squeezing his heart. He gripped the wheel of his chair, but his fingers felt numb. Marcus turned from the van, alarmed. "Mr. Hale." Nathan tried to speak, but no sound came. And then she appeared. A little girl stepped out from the alley beside the corner store. She couldn't have been more than 6. Dark skin, curly hair tied into 2 puffballs. A worn pink dress, smudged with dirt and sidewalk chalk. She carried a small yellow spray bottle in one hand, the kind used for misting plants. She looked at Nathan with strange calmness. Not curiosity. Not fear. Recognition. She walked up to him as if drawn by something invisible. Nathan tried to speak again. His lips parted, but all that came out was a strained gasp. The girl didn't flinch. She raised the yellow bottle and sprayed a fine mist across his bare ankles. The liquid was cool, almost cold. The scent was faint, citrusy, with a hint of lavender. "What are you doing?" Nathan finally managed to choke out. The girl looked at him with eyes too old for her age. "It's hope," she said softly. "Sometimes people forget what it feels like." Nathan blinked. His heart was still racing, but the sharp pain was beginning to fade. He stared at the girl, stunned. Something about her face, it tugged at him. The shape of her eyes. The gentle set of her mouth. It reminded him of Isabel. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I live with my mom," she replied. "What's her name?" The girl hesitated for a second. Then she said, "Isabel." Nathan froze. A buzzing sound filled his ears, louder than the city, louder than the traffic. He stared at the child. Her eyes didn't waver. "That's not possible," he said. "Isabel is. She died. Years ago. She died." The girl tilted her head, confused. "No, she didn't." Nathan's fingers tightened on the arms of his wheelchair. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated again. Then quietly she said, "Hope." Hope. His breath caught. This had to be a mistake. A coincidence. A cruel joke. Except, she looked so much like Isabel. Nathan felt his world shift under him. He tried to steady his breath, but it came in short, shallow bursts. "Can you take me to your mother?" he asked, voice barely more than a whisper. Hope nodded. She's home. Come on. She took his hand. He let her. Marcus rushed up. Sir, are you okay? Nathan didn't take his eyes off the little girl. Follow us, he said. Hope led them down side streets and alleyways, past cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences. The further they went, the quieter it became. The chaos of the city faded behind them, replaced by birdsong and the distant hum of a window air conditioner. Finally, she stopped in front of a modest 3-story walk-up. The bricks were faded, the steps chipped, but it was clean. A small potted plant sat by the door. Hope looked up at Nathan. She's inside. He felt dizzy, disoriented. Part of him screamed to turn back, to leave this behind before it unraveled him. But he had already crossed the line. He followed her inside. The hallway smelled of old wood and lemon cleaner. Hope climbed the stairs quickly, Nathan and Marcus following more slowly behind. On the second floor, she knocked on a door with a faded number 2B. There was silence. Then soft footsteps. Then the door opened. Nathan stopped breathing. She stood there. Isabel. Older. Thinner. Tired. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, her face bare. But it was her. No mistaking it. Her eyes widened. The towel in her hand dropped to the floor. Nathan. His name on her lips hit him like a hammer. He stared at her, unable to move, unable to think. You're alive, he said. So are you, she whispered, stepping closer. I thought you were gone. He couldn't speak. The weight of years crushed down on him all at once. Hope ran into her mother's arms. Isabel knelt, holding her close, her eyes never leaving Nathan. He opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat. Finally, he asked the only thing that mattered. Is she ours? Isabel nodded slowly. Yes, she said, voice trembling. She's our daughter. She's the baby they told you was gone. The room swayed. Nathan grabbed the doorway to steady himself. Everything he had believed for 6 years, every lie, every night spent staring into darkness, crumbled. And in its place stood a truth more terrifying than grief. They had stolen not just his wife. They had stolen his family. Nathan sat in silence on the worn leather sofa, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes locked on the floor. The apartment was small but warm. There were pictures on the walls, crayon drawings taped to the fridge, and the lingering smell of cinnamon and soap in the air. It was not the world he knew. But it was hers. Theirs. Across from him, Isabel sat in a straight-backed wooden chair, Hope curled in her lap, head resting on her mother's shoulder. The girl had fallen asleep quickly, as if her work was done. But Nathan was wide awake. Numb. Suspended in disbelief. He finally looked up, his voice low. They told me you died. Isabel nodded slowly. Her hands trembled as she stroked her daughter's curls. They told me you'd never walk again, she said. That your injuries were irreversible. That you'd be broken, physically, mentally, financially. They said you wouldn't survive another trauma. Who? Your parents. The words dropped like stones between them. Nathan's jaw clenched. My parents said you were dead. They said the same to me, she whispered. They came to the hospital after your surgery. I was still weak from labor. They said the crash had ruined you. That if I stayed, I'd only make it worse. They said you needed to grieve, not to fight. That if I loved you, I had to let go. Nathan shook his head slowly, trying to process it. They forged papers, Isabel continued. Death certificate. Custody orders. They had a team of lawyers. The hospital cooperated. Why would they do that? He asked, voice breaking. Because they didn't want me in your life, she said. Because I wasn't one of them. I was a liability. A complication. And a child out of wedlock, before the media even knew we were married, would have shattered your image. Nathan felt something rising inside him. A rage that made his chest tighten. And you just left? He asked. You believed them? Isabel's eyes filled with tears. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. No, she said, louder now. There isn't always a choice when you're 19, just given birth, and surrounded by people who control everything. They threaten to ruin you, Nathan. To drain every account, every asset. They said they'd dismantle Hale Corp, blacklist your name, bury your future. They made it sound like I was the only thing standing between you and destruction. Nathan stood, pacing the small room with his hands balled into fists. So you disappeared, he said bitterly. Left me with nothing but a grave and an empty nursery. I thought I was protecting you. He turned, eyes blazing. You should have fought for us. I tried, she said, voice breaking. I wrote letters, emails. I went to the office building once. Security threw me out. They had people watching me. I got threats. I was scared, Nathan. Not just for me. For her. She looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully. Nathan's anger flickered. Isabel continued, softer now. I moved here under a different name. Started over. It hasn't been easy. But she's safe. She's happy. She doesn't know who I am. I told her father died in the accident. Because for a long time, I believed it. Nathan sat back down, burying his face in his hands. I can't believe they did this to me. I can, Isabel said. Because they've always believed they own you. There was silence. Then Nathan spoke again. How did she find me? I didn't send her, Isabel said quickly. She sometimes wanders. She's intuitive. I think she overheard me on the phone. I've been trying to get in touch with one of the old doctors. Someone who might help reopen the case. Maybe she heard me say your name. She said she was Hope, Nathan murmured. She is, Isabel whispered. She's everything we lost, and everything we still have. Nathan looked at his daughter. Her small chest rising and falling. The same curl in her lips when she slept. The same eyebrows as Isabel. The same eyes as his mother, though he hated admitting it. He swallowed hard. I want to be in her life. Isabel met his gaze. She deserves to know who you are. And you deserve to know her. Nathan nodded slowly. But I won't let them take anything else from me. I need to know everything. Every name. Every document. We're going to expose this. Isabel hesitated. There's something else, she said. Nathan froze. What? She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. Your father. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted the child gone. What are you saying? I overheard a conversation. Right before they forced me out. He said if the child couldn't be controlled, it might be better if she never made it out of that hospital. Nathan's blood ran cold. You're telling me, they were going to? I don't know, she said quickly. I don't know what he meant. But I didn't wait to find out. I left that night. Nathan's stomach twisted. His own father. The man who had raised him to believe in discipline, strategy, legacy. He had nearly ordered his granddaughter's death. I'm going to destroy them, Nathan said quietly. You don't have to, Isabel said gently. Just protect her. Det är all that matters. He looked at her, eyes dark with resolve. No. They stole my wife. My child. 6 years of my life. They manipulated the system, buried the truth, and made me believe I was alone. I won't let them rewrite this. He stood and rolled his shoulders, the tension radiating off him like heat. I'm going to take her back. I'm going to take all of us back. Isabelle's lips trembled. They'll come after you. Let them. He walked over to Hope and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. She brought me back to life, he said. Now it's my turn to bring justice to hers. Outside, the city roared on. But inside that small Brooklyn apartment, a man who had been dead inside for 6 years stood quietly, holding his daughter's hand. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid. Nathan moved quickly. The very next morning, he arranged for a discreet meeting with a private investigator named Elena Cruz, a former federal agent with a reputation for uncovering what others wanted buried. Within 2 days, she had already tracked down several staff members from the hospital where Isabel had given birth, including a nurse who had been abruptly transferred after the incident. The pieces were starting to fall into place. Nathan didn't wait for full confirmation. He knew how the game worked. Power didn't respond to truth, it responded to exposure. He scheduled a press conference for the following week. It would be the first time he appeared publicly since the accident. He didn't tell his parents. Not yet. He wanted to control the narrative. Wanted to make them feel what he had felt for years: uncertainty, fear, loss of control. He had Marcus secure a suite in a midtown hotel and moved Isabel and Hope in under an alias. Security was tight. Only a few trusted associates knew they were there. Nathan spent the nights with them, often just watching Hope sleep, memorizing every expression, every sound. She was curious about him, eager to talk, ask questions, show him her drawings. He answered as much as he could, without overwhelming her. They had lost 6 years, but he was determined to make the next 6 count double. But the closer the press conference came, the more uneasy he felt. His father hadn't called. Neither had his mother. It was too quiet.
The night before the conference, Nathan stood alone on the balcony of the hotel suite, watching the city shimmer below.
Isabel stepped out beside him, arms folded. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. "I've never been more sure of anything. They'll deny everything. They'll bury you in legal threats. Let them try." She paused. "And if they don't deny it?" Nathan turned to her. "Then they confirm it. And the world sees who they really are." The next morning, the room was packed. Journalists, photographers, television crews.
Live stream running across multiple networks.
The return of Nathan Hale was already making headlines. He wore a tailored black suit, simple but strong. His wheelchair gleamed under the lights. When he rolled onto the stage, the crowd fell silent. He began with calm clarity. He told them about the crash.
About Isabelle.
About the lie that she had died, and that their daughter had been stolen. He spoke about the hospital cover-up. About the forged documents.
The intimidation. The silence.
And then with quiet intensity, he looked directly into the cameras. "I was made to believe that I lost my entire family. But the truth is, my family was stolen from me. And those responsible for that theft weren't strangers. They were the people I trusted most." The room exploded with questions. Before he could answer, a voice called out from the back of the room. "Mr. Hale, your parents have arrived."
The crowd parted.
Thomas and Evelyn Hale stepped into the room, flanked by lawyers and security. They looked composed, polished, unshaken. Nathan's jaw clenched.
Thomas stepped forward, nodding to the press.
"Good morning," he said smoothly. "Before we allow this tragic misunderstanding to escalate further, we'd like to clarify a few things." Nathan stared at him in disbelief. Evelyn turned toward the reporters. "We're here today to introduce you to Nathan's daughter. His real daughter." The doors opened again. A woman entered, leading a young girl by the hand. The girl looked about 6, with straight blonde hair and pale skin. She wore a pink dress, not the same one, but close enough. Nathan's stomach dropped. "This," Evelyn continued, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder, "is Abigail Hale. Born 6 years ago, under emergency circumstances. After the accident, we made a decision to protect her and her mother from a media circus."
Nathan's voice cut through the room.
"What are you doing?" "We're correcting a narrative," Thomas said coldly. "We've allowed you to grieve, to recover. But you've clearly been manipulated.
You forged documents. You lied to me.
You told me Isabel died." Thomas didn't blink. "Because we believed she was a threat. And now she's returned, with a child she claims is yours. No proof. No history.
Just a story."
"I have proof," Nathan said. "I have DNA results." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Results obtained privately, without court oversight? Those can be arranged." The reporters murmured.
Isabelle stepped forward, eyes blazing.
"You tried to erase us."
Evelyn's face twisted slightly.
"We tried to protect our son." Nathan looked from the girl named Abigail to the press, who were now in a frenzy of whispered speculation and frantic typing. He realized the genius of their move. They didn't try to deny his story. They replaced it. They didn't bury the truth. They buried it under a better lie. By presenting another child, blonde, carefully dressed, compliant, they gave the public a safer, easier version of the story. A daughter who matched the Hale image. A woman who never challenged their authority.
Acline, manufacture de rédemption arc.
And in doing so, they turned Nathan's truth into noise.
The press conférence spiraled.
Reporters asked for documentation.
Demanded names.
Compared photos. Some outright accused Nathan of being mentally unstable, manipulated by a woman with a history of fabrication. He left the room before it was over.
Back in the hotel, Isabelle sat on the bed, shaking with rage.
They planned this, she said.
Every detail.
They always plan ahead, Nathan replied quietly.
Hope sat in the corner, silent.
She didn't ask questions. She had seen enough to understand the danger. Nathan stood by the window, his reflection fractured in the glass. They won't stop, Isabelle said. Not now. I know. So what do we do? Nathan turned. We don't fight them on their terms. We don't argue in public.
We prove everything in private.
And when we move, we make it permanent. He took out his phone and called Elena Cruz. I need everything, he told her. Every shred of evidence. Internal emails.
Financial record.
Medical logs. And find the girl they brought to the press conference. I want to know who she is, where she came from, and how they got her to lie. Isabelle watched him. You're not giving up? He shook his head. They declared war today. I'm just choosing when and where to end it. He turned to Hope. She looked up at him, not with fear, but with calm. Are you still my dad? She asked softly. He walked to her and knelt beside her chair. I always was, he said. And I always will be. Outside, the news cycles spun the new narrative. But Nathan Hale was done playing defense. And somewhere deep in the quiet, something in him began to rise. Not rage. Not revenge. Conviction. The world moved on quickly. In the days following the press conference, headlines shifted. Articles once brimming with outrage now traded speculation for skepticism. Some journalists called it a family dispute gone public. Others labeled Nathan unstable, manipulated, perhaps even suffering from delusions born of trauma. And yet, amid the noise, whispers began to rise. Whispers that the girl called Abigail had no documented birth certificate prior to 2 months ago. That her mother had suddenly appeared in Thomas Hale's inner circle. That several hospital employees listed in Nathan's original claim had quietly resigned. But no one had answers. Not yet. Nathan had learned his lesson. The next move wouldn't be public. It would be surgical. Elena Cruz, relentless and meticulous, returned with a trove of evidence. Internal emails between hospital administrators and Hale family lawyers. Bank transfers to offshore accounts tied to the doctor who signed Isabelle's death certificate. Security footage, partially corrupted, but enough to show Isabelle being wheeled out of a back entrance with an infant, escorted not by nurses, but by men in black suits. More than enough. But Nathan didn't release it. He sent it to 3 people. 1. A federal prosecutor who owed Elena a favor. 2. The board of directors of Hale Corp. 3. Thomas Hale himself. The message was short. Step down. Or the world sees everything. Within 72 hours, the board announced a leadership restructuring. Thomas Hale was stepping aside to focus on family matters. Evelyn disappeared from public view. Abigail and her fabricated lineage vanished as quickly as they had appeared. No press statements. No lawsuits. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any denial. Nathan didn't gloat. He didn't hold another press conference. He didn't speak to the media. He simply walked away. Hale Corp continued without him. He sold his remaining shares, quietly but completely. The empire he had once inherited now belonged to someone else. He chose something better. Weeks passed. Autumn arrived, painting the city in rust and gold. Nathan moved Isabelle and Hope to a quiet house on the Hudson, far from the skyscrapers and the cameras. The house was modest by billionaire standards, but perfect by his. Each morning, he watched his daughter chase leaves in the backyard. Each night, he read her stories by the fire. Some days, Isabelle would catch him staring at the wheelchair in the corner, unmoved for hours. You don't have to prove anything, she'd say. But it wasn't about proof. It was about presence. He started physical therapy again. Not because he believed he would walk, but because he believed in trying. He went to the sessions alone, no press, no photographers, no expectations. Just quiet persistence. Hope would sometimes come with him. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor, sketching or humming to herself, occasionally glancing up to cheer him on. One day, after a particularly grueling session, she stood beside him while he gripped the parallel bars, sweat dripping from his forehead. "You know what I think?" she said. "What?" "I think you'll stand when you stop being angry." He looked at her, surprised. "Who says I'm angry?" She shrugged. "Your face. It looks tight all the time. Like a balloon that's gonna pop." He chuckled, despite himself. "That obvious, huh?" Hope nodded. "Mom says anger is like a backpack full of bricks. Sometimes you carry it so long you forget it's even there." Nathan was quiet. That night, he sat alone in the backyard, watching the stars peek through the trees. Isabel joined him, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "She's special," he said. "She's yours," Isabel replied. They sat in silence for a while. Then Nathan said, "I forgave you. Did you know that?" "I wasn't sure." "I did. The moment I saw her face. I knew whatever you did, it was to protect her. To protect me. I still carry guilt." "So do I. You're allowed to let it go." "I'm trying." The next morning, he stood. Not far. Not long. Not perfectly. But he stood. One trembling step forward. Then another. His legs didn't fully respond, and Marcus was there, ready to catch him. But Nathan didn't fall. Hope clapped her hands and beamed. Isabel cried quietly in the corner, her face buried in her hands. Later, as they sat together in the living room, Hope curled between them, Nathan whispered something to Isabel. "Let's change her name." Isabel looked over, curious. "To what?" "To Hope," he said. "That's who she is." Isabel smiled. "She'll like that." They filed the paperwork the next day. Not for publicity. Not for revenge. But to reclaim something that had been stolen, not just a name, but a story. Months later, when someone from a major news outlet tried to schedule an exclusive interview, Nathan declined. He had nothing more to prove. His silence was no longer grief. It was peace. And in that peace, there was something stronger than power, stronger than wealth. There was truth. Not the kind shouted from podiums or posted on screens. But the kind that lived in morning laughter, shared meals, and bedtime whispers. And sometimes, if you listened closely, in the soft hiss of a yellow spray bottle misting the air. A reminder. Hope was never lost. Just waiting to be found.